Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years. They are still quite a new addition to the Swedish beer scene, but they have built a very strong reputation for themselves, and I would say they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but in recent times they've been trying a few different things which have also been very nice. So it's going to be cool to see how that goes for them over the next little while. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget. It is supposed to be very nice, and it's also a style that I know these guys can do very, very well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Apex Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Turf War. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Lokalt Osmosgelig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for December of 2022, along with the Keller Dunkel that we reviewed for you a couple of videos back. But yeah, this is the only IPA that they released this month, but they do have more coming in January, from what I understand. But yeah, heard good things about this beer, as I said, so let's crack on and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go up to the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, prefecture, whatever you want in there. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should pop up. And of course, pardon me, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many different things, and that is constantly being added to. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at my brewery notes for Apex Brewing then. So, Apex Brewing, as I've told you already, were based in Nora, which is to the north of Örebro originally, and they were founded back in 2017 by Daniel Gatchitz and Niklas Lundgren. So, both of these guys are musicians, with Niklas having played in the band 59 Times the Pain, whereas Daniel played in The Voice of a Generation, and Daniel and Niklas are responsible for the brewing operations, but there are a few others involved in the company as well. This is Leif Karlsson, Ola Eriksson, and Roger Hjelm. But these guys started off with a very modest brewing capacity actually. They had a small 500 litre brew kit with 6 fermentation tanks, and they were just selling their beers in the local area before they got them into Systembolaget. I believe that was back in 2017, and I reviewed the very first beer that they released, which was called the Single Hop, which was just a single hop Citra New England IPA, and it was really good actually, and they've rebrewed that fairly recently from what I remember. But yeah, once they got their beers out there a little bit more, they really started to make a name for themselves. In 2018, they brewed around 35,000 litres of beer across the year with about 25 different varieties, pretty much all of which were different kinds of New England IPA. And the following year, in 2019, they'd expanded and they brewed 120,000 litres. Over the next few years, they kind of soldiered on through the COVID-19 pandemic, and then in the summer of 2021 they announced that they would move to a new premises in the Baytorp district of Örebro in the autumn. So they've now moved there, and at this point they upgraded their 500 litre brew kit to a new 2,000 litre system and installed several new fermentation tanks, and things have been going very well for them. It's allowed them to get their beer out there a little bit more, and yeah, the company's doing pretty well from what I understand. But as of December 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 125 different kinds of beer. Like I said to you, they are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy IPAs, but in recent times they've been doing a few different lagers. They've done a Keller Pils, a Keller Märzen, the Keller Dunkel, which we reviewed most recently, and I have seen that a Schwarzbier has just been released through Glassbanken as well, so I suspect we'll see that through Systembolaget in the next month or two. And if it does come, I will be reviewing that for you, definitely. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Apex Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Untappd page to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself then. That's everything you need to know. So another quick look for you at the artwork on this one before we taste the beer. There you can see one of the slogans of Apex Brewing Company on the back there, music, people and beer, obviously a reference to Daniel and Nicholas's music background. Plain silver top on the can with this one, and as you always get, you get this sort of almost Illuminati type thing with the animal on top of it there. So yeah, we've got a Doberman with a satanic inverted cross on its head. That's kind of cool. But it says on the can here, still say fuck him cause ain't no love for him. Tell him come and see me, I got a slug for him. Voof mofos. I like that actually. But that's good. There you can see on the side, Turf War IPA. Once again, there's also the symbol for Apex Brewing Company up here as well, or one of them, Turf War IPA, 440 mils. I believe, pardon me, I paid 45 Swedish kronor for this one, so that's €4.50, somewhere in the region of like £4 sterling, and I guess in the region of like $5 American, which is pretty decent for a 6.5% IPA. So the details of this beer, according to Untappd, this one is hopped with Mosaic, both on in the Whirlpool and both on the hot side and on the cold side. Galaxy on the cold side as well. We know these two hops quite well. Both about 14% alpha acid. Mosaic is American, gives you a nice kind of tangerine note in my experience. Galaxy on the other hand is Australian, and that gives you quite a strong passion fruit, but juicy mango and also a good little bit of kind of pineapple and stuff like that. The malt base in this one is extra pale ale, naked oats and torrefied oats, and as often is the case with Apex Brewing, this uses a WLP 66 London fog yeast. So yeah, 6.5% New England IPA, Turf War from Apex Brewing. Let's get this guy out and have a look at it. Feels like a wee while since I've had an IPA from Apex actually, although it was just sometime in November, so not that long. But yeah, always nice to keep an eye on the new Apex releases. So there we are. Yes, that's it. So anyway, this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from a modern New England IPA. So I mean, before the head disappears, we'll have a little look at that. I'd say that it's poured with just under a finger of a frothy, kind of creamy head, this one. I wouldn't call it perfect white, but definitely quite creamy. So just have a wee look at that. That does look very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, you've got that lovely kind of creamy, bubbly head there. A little bit, it is kind of receding a little bit, and I'm sure that will fade away to be a nice kind of thin, foamy layer later on. But in terms of the colour of this beer, I would describe this one as a very bright yellow. It's got a lovely kind of bright mango juice colour to it, which is great. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. Yeah, I like this. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer too, but when it comes to IPAs, you don't often have to care about that. But like I say, not much in the way of visible carbonation, and yeah, it's got a nice little bit of haze to it, this one. It's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that we've come across. Remember, the haze in these beers depends on the oak content, the wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you're using. But this one, it does, for a 6.5%er, this does have a fair little bit of opacity to it, which is, yeah, quite nice actually. So yeah, other than that, I don't think there's very much we need to say about the appearance of this beer. You can see that the head has just calms down a wee bit actually. So yeah, looks good. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. Oh yeah, kind of typical Apex. Can't really ask for much more than that. We know these guys do good New England IPAs. This one I think is going to be no exception to that rule. So in terms of the in terms of the what do you say? In terms of the aroma, first off, then I would say this one for me, just as a first impression, this is quite a light, grassy New England IPA from the green component. It's got a mix of barley malt and oat coming out of it. Those are the first things that come for me. Pardon me. And then you've also got the nice kind of juicy fruity character. This is actually quite a mild, kind of easygoing New England IPA, just judging by its aroma. But as I've said to you before, for me there are 6 elements to think about with this style. So the first one would be the kind of sort of yeasty and slightly farmhousey character. You've got the rye leaning grainy side of things as well. Those are a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs. But you've also got the kind of wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweet side of things as well. These are the 6 sort of elements to think about with this style, and often these beers will show you a little bit of everything. And with this one, yeah, there are quite a few things going on, but for me, this is the first impression of it is good bit of barley malt, good little bit of oat, and then you've also got good little bit of barley malt, good little bit of oat, and then you've also got a really nice kind of light grassiness to it and some nice juicy fruits. Lovely smelling beer, but let's break it down and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. So, the backbone of the beer is absolutely, you get some of that kind of typical fresh white bread crust out of this one. That's absolutely there. On top of that, I would say, on top of that, I would say this one has a little bit of that Jacob's cream cracker. There are 1 or 2 little hints of woodiness to this beer as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, fresh white bread crust. Yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, a little touch of woodiness in there. Then you've got that fluffy. You've got that lovely fluffy white bread coming out of this one too, which is nice. The barley malt bread, that'll be the extra pale malts in this one. But yeah, the more that I smell of this beer, I actually do get a little impression of a kind of wholemeal brown bread coming out of this one too, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on with this beer. There are a few kind of oaty components to this beer as well. Like you can smell with this one, as I've always said, oats are usually a very good indicator of how fresh your beer is. And in this case, it's kind of interesting because you do get little bits of dryness out of the oat. And usually the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older the beer is. That kind of tends to be how it goes. But I am getting some of this kind of oaty, creamy, porridgey type note out of this one. There's also a little bit of a kind of dryness to the oats as well. And then you've also got that little bit of Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotchy type note to it, which I really quite enjoy too. There is a little touch of sweetness to this one, as I say. But yeah, for me, the malty base in this beer is really quite it's quite layered and it goes together really well. But yeah, if you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, you do start to get the dryness of the oats. And this beer, having gone through Systembolaget, it won't be at its freshest. It will be maybe about 6 weeks old or something like that. But it still smells pretty good, I have to say. In terms of, I noticed on the can, in the list of malts that I read out to you earlier, there wasn't any real mention of wheat in this one, but it does say on the can that there's wheat in there, so I don't know if there is some wheat malt in this beer as well. There is a little bit of kind of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, but it's quite, it's quite minimal, to be honest with you. It's not any stronger or any more pungent than I've noticed from, it's not any more pungent or whatever than I've noticed from Apex Brewing before, come to think of it. So yeah, that's interesting. But as I say, other than that, I don't really think there's anything else to say about the kind of malt base and the yeasty side of this beer, to be honest with you. I think we can go on to the green component. So for me, the green component in this one, it's actually, the more that I smell of it, the more kind of pungent it gets. And as I've said to you before, there are 3 different kinds of hopping. Early edition hopping, which gives you mainly bitterness. Late edition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then dry hopping, then dry hopping comes after the wort boil, and that doesn't give you any bitter, so it's all about flavour and aroma. And for me, this one, is, how do you say, it's quite, it has a good little bit more floral character to it, but you can tell that this beer relies mainly on late edition and dry hopping. I don't think there's too much in the way of early edition hopping with this one, because the green component otherwise would be very deep and dank, whereas here it's actually just quite bright and floral. So that's really what I'm getting from this one. Yeah, so on the green component, yeah, you get a little touch of earthiness, which I think will be from Mosaic, but otherwise it's quite big and quite floral. I'm getting more and more floral character out of it the more that I smell this beer. Then at the front of the nose, you've got a lovely kind of grassy note to it. It's got a lovely grassy zestiness, which I think is really very nice. And then, yeah, on top of that, you've got a nice kind of juicy, you've got a lovely juicy fruity character as well, which I think is great. You've got a little bit of that kind of mango. You've got a little bit. I don't get so much of the way of the stronger passion fruit that you can get from Galaxy, but I do get quite a little bit of mango. I do get a good bit of the pineapple as well, but for me the Mosaic is actually a bit more dominant in this one, and that's probably because it's being used in the Whirlpool as well. So yeah, the Mosaic's a bit more dominant for me in this one, and this beer has a really nice kind of orangey lean to it, which, as you'll know if you've watched the channel before, suits me down to the ground. Love a nice kind of orangey leaning character in these beers. So yeah, let's get the rest of this out into the glass, and we'll have a taste of this now. As I always say, just take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. I always think that's half the experience when it comes to these. So yeah, let's have a little look at this one then. So this is the Turf War IPA, a 6.5% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Apex Brewing in Örebro here in Sweden. Very good brewery, and hopefully this beer is as good as the ones we've had from them before. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn nice, I have to say. I'm going to say straight away from the first taste that we've had of this, it comes across as really, you get a lot of creaminess out of this one. It's actually a lot more oaty and creamy than I was thinking it would be from the aroma. I thought it was going to be a good little bit more barley malt to this one and things, but yeah, it really leans toward that oaty side of the spectrum with the New Englands. But very nice beer, so thumbs up to Apex once again. Yeah. So, yeah, another solid beer from these guys, and it's a really nice drinkable one as well. Yeah, this is good. So, let's just break this down, describe it for you a wee bit more. So this is a lovely, very smooth, very creamy, juicy, and slightly floral IPA, this one. Good stuff. So, yeah, on the, yeah, I would say on the malty side of things then, we'll start off as we always do in the middle of the palate. So on the malty side of things, you've got that nice kind of fresh, white bread crusty base. And that goes together really nicely. So yeah, fresh, white bready, bread crusty base. On top of that, on top of the bread crust, you definitely get, if we're talking about that middle third of your palate, you can feel the bread crusty backbone. On top of that, you get that nice kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of note. And then toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you start to get a little bit of a more kind of woody, you do get a little bit more of a kind of woody character coming out of it. So, On top of that though, I would say then you start to get the kind of fluffy, airy, bready layers. So for me, on top of the cream cracker, you've got a little bit of a, you do have a little bit of a more wholemeal, brown bready note coming out of the beer. So yeah, bread crust, little touch of wood, Jacob's cream cracker, wholemeal brown bread, then you've got the fluffy white bread coming out of this one as well. Yeah, the fluffy white bread in there is quite nice. And as I say, it's the whole malt base in the middle of this beer is actually quite wet in a sense. I do like that. And as I say, this one's kind of interesting too because I don't think this one has wheat in it, which I think is quite unusual for Apex actually, because usually above the airy white bread you've got this kind of denser and sometimes slightly zippy wheaty layer, but this one doesn't have it. The bread that you get actually feels really quite wet, but you've got the oats sitting on top of that, so you've got the kind of creamy oats. You've got the the kind of creamy oats sitting in this beer on top of everything. So yeah, lovely kind of creamy oaty character coming out of it, and yeah, I do like how that goes together. So you can feel the layer of the bread above that, but you have the kind of creamy oats in there. And in the middle of in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel like the oats kind of go down the middle line of your tongue, and it's quite dense but also quite wet and porridgey at the same time. But as you move out toward the edges of the palate, as you move out toward the edges of the palate, it's kind of more, how would you say, it is a little bit more dry. You do get a little bit of that kind of drier, sweeter, oaty character out of it as well. But as I say, the oats in this one, the way the oats are in this beer, and I think it's just for the fact that the wheat isn't there in this beer, you just get this really, the whole bready character and the oats and things, they all kind of merge together, and it feels like a really wet kind of affair with the bread. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. But above the oaty layer, there's a little bit of almost, you do get a little touch of McVitie's digestive biscuit toward the edge of the palate. And in the dead centre of your tongue, there's a little circle there where you're getting wee bits of, where you're getting little bits of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, actually. So, yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is also really nice. The whole malted, the middle third of your palate in this beer is quite interesting. Yeah, so in terms of the in terms of the middle third of your palate, I think that's everything we need to say. So let's look at the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of that white bready build up there. The base of the back third of your palate, the bread crust is a little bit more grainy. As I've always said, more grainy, bitter flavours come out further back on the palate. But then you have a little touch of that kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing. Then you get then as you say, you get a little bit, you get that kind of wholemeal brown bready layer for sure, so you get that nice airy, light wholemeal brown bready character coming out of it. And then above all of that, you start to get, above all of that, you get the kind of airy white bready layer, which is quite nice. And these two bready layers are a lot taller, I would say. Yeah, they are quite a bit taller than what they were in the middle third of the palate, and that's quite common. Above that though, you do get, I do wonder, it makes me wonder if there's a little bit of wheat in this one. Above that, you do get a little bit of that kind of wheaty bitiness coming out of the beer, which is quite interesting. So there's a little bit of wheaty bitey character in there. Then above all of that, you have the above all of that, you've got the a little bit of that airy sort of, pardon me, you have a little bit of that more airy, farmhousey, bready character with this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think is really quite nice. So yeah, you've got that airy, bready, farmhousey character, and it has a little bit of honeycomb to it. It's got a little bit of the woodiness and things. Yeah, I think it goes together really quite well. But you can see the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller, and as you come further forward, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I like how it goes together, this beer. The malty yeasty side of things is quite nice, but it's quite different. It's quite wet. It's quite bready and wet, this one, for me, compared to some of the other Apex beers that I can remember. But let's focus on the green component now. So, back corners of the palate, there's definitely a little presence of earthiness, and as I've said, that's down to the mosaic. I would say that the earthiness comes from the mosaic in this one. Yeah. So, definitely, yeah, definitely a little bit of mosaic in this beer. Absolutely. Well, sorry, a little bit of mosaic, a little bit of earthiness in this one. But yeah, as you come further forward along the sides of your palate, you can feel it really does build this nice kind of this big nice floral aromaticity, which I think is really nice. So yeah, you can feel that big floral aromaticity just building up there. It's almost a little bit spicy as you reach the front corners of the palate, but then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a bit lighter and grassy. It's also a little bit more zesty. Yeah, I think it goes together very nicely in that sense. So it gets a thumbs up from me. So in terms of the uh, yeah, in terms of the front third of your palate and the fruity side of this beer, this is also quite nice. So you've got that border region between front third and middle third of your palate. So you can feel a little bit of bready build up in there. It's kind of a white bready character, but the base of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit more kind of bread crusty nature to it. Absolutely. So yeah, nice little bit of bread crusty nature in there. On top of that, you get a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready character. Then there's a bit of smooth white bread, and then above all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So for me, when it comes to this one, you get a little bit of that. Yeah, you get a little bit of that more stronger passion fruity type note. So yeah, stronger kind of passion fruity quality to it at the back, which is going to be the Galaxy, of course, maybe even a little bit grapefruity, to be honest with you. So stronger grapefruit, little touch of passion fruit, but as you come further forward, it does show you that more mellow, juicy mango, and as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's a bit more pineapple-y. But yeah, into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about the tangerine orangey characters, which is really quite nice. But yeah, lovely juicy tangerine orangey characters from this one. I think it is really I think it is really, really nice in that sense. But it's interesting because in the aroma, this beer leans a lot more toward the mosaic, whereas in the actual flavour, the fruity side of it at least is a lot more balanced between the two. And the Galaxy, the pungency of the Galaxy flavours actually starts to dominate. So it's a wee bit of an interesting point to be made there with this one. And this beer, I think the more you drink of it, the kind of bitier and sort of more floral and things it gets, it certainly shows a lot more floral character the further into the aftertaste that you go, and almost a little bit of spiciness too. But yeah, malt base in this one, as I say, quite wet and sort of almost porridgey in a sense. So you're getting a lot of wet bready character and oatiness out of this one. The green component is a lot more spicy the more you drink of it, and then yeah, you've got the juicy fruity side of things, but yeah, a lot more Galaxy leaning than I thought it might have been. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is quite interesting, I have to say. But thumbs up to Apex Brewing for this one. I think they did a nice job with it. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, then I think just to round off this review, what will we say about this beer? Yeah, for an IPA, this one for me it's pretty much in the middle of the spectrum, kind of mid-bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth in this one. It feels quite clean, this beer, actually. But this is one thing we have to remember with New England IPAs. When I first started drinking these, I found them really, really thick. But these days, you know, you're having to go to the triples and quadruples to get that thick mouthfeel that we once associated with the style. You know, it's just your palate gets used to these things. So for me, this one's kind of right in the middle of the spectrum for a single IPA, but very nice, clean and smooth mouthfeel to it. In terms of IBUs, I think it is about 30-ish IBUs, this one. So yeah, lovely 30 IBU, 30-ish IBUs. The malt base is really smooth, as I say, quite bready, quite grainy. There's a little touch of sweetness to it. And then, yeah, pardon me, in terms of the fruity side of the beer, you have this, yeah, you've got this really nice mix of tropical fruits and citrusy fruits in there, but the tropical fruits may have a bit more pungency, the citrusy fruits are a bit more oily. You notice that on the front of your palate. But yeah, I think standard 30-ish IBUs. We've talked about the malt base as well, we've talked about the fruits. I think that's everything we need to say about this one, to be honest with you. Another very solid New England IPA from Apex Brewing, and you wouldn't expect any less from these guys, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Turf War IPA, 6.5% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Apex Brewing Company as well. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point very soon. But yeah, this has been another nice beer from them, and I look forward to trying more from Apex going forward. Until the next time, Slange it, Skull, cheers, see you guys in the next review. This one was Turf War IPA, pardon me, and it was pretty damn good. Slange it, Skull, cheers, catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out some of the Apex beers. Thank you for watching, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys later.